Hello, Marvels.
Hi, everybody. Do you ever feel like things don't go your way or what
It's
you were
funny you should mention
expecting?
that.
Yeah, it doesn't turn out the way you thought it would.
No, I've
It's
never
never.
been surprised, disappointed, frustrated, angry.
Oh, disappointed. That's
Yeah,
one.
so disappointed because when your expectations are not met.
I have a
I've had
story
so
about
many of
I
those.
have a growth story around disappointment.
A growth
So,
story?
yeah, like
Oh yeah.
learning. Yeah, so as
Yeah.
a kid, you believe in Santa Claus. But even when you don't believe in Santa Claus, for our young viewers, plug their ears
Dis-
right now. Um,
disclaimer. Wah,
Disclaimer,
wah, wah.
disclaimer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think about what age I was. I must have been like maybe 8-ish. So like third
Mm-hmm.
grade when kids start to question that. Um, and I wanted to know what I was getting for Christmas. So, kids are smart. I figured out where my parents hid stuff. They had them in their closet. We weren't really supposed to be in their bedroom at all. And it was hidden in their closet, like under blankets. So I'd figure out times to go in there, sneak in there and look. And then sometimes even, this is terrible. Some would already be wrapped, and my mom was really into the foil wrapping paper, which was awesome because you could peel the tape
Yeah.
off and not, yeah. So I'd be in there under the sheet for like 20 minutes peeling, and then I'd look and see what I got. I did that massively for one Christmas, and I thought it was awesome because I'm like, woohoo, I know what I'm getting. It was the biggest buzzkill because then there was no
Mm-hmm.
surprises on Christmas. I was so disappointed. I knew everything I was getting. And
Right.
so the growth thing was more like me realizing that it's the excitement of the expectation, it's the anticipation's the funnest part, and it's not the actual thing. It's like the
Mm.
lead up that
Yeah.
matters. And then I felt like I kind of matured somehow after that. I remember telling my mom years later, I'm like, yeah, there was one year I knew everything I was getting. She's like, I could see you doing that. I could see you. Neither of my sisters, but me, yeah. But it was sort of like this. Prior to that, I think that there were maybe things that I wanted or that I was disappointed. I think that's what drove me to do that. Or I'd have an idea in my head about how like a birthday would go, and inevitably it can't ever live up to your expectation unless it's
Yeah.
Disney World, which comes close if not exceeds, which is why we both are addicted to that.
Yeah.
But oftentimes things don't live up to what you have in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Feel disappointed, or in the moment, if we're talking about neurodivergent thing, where you don't have you could say your expectation. I was going to say your routine, but even if something you're planning that's out of your routine, it doesn't go the way you expected, it can really be a sucker punch to the gut, right? Where you're like, it just didn't live up to or didn't go the way I thought it would.
Yeah.
Every year we get so excited when our Seattle Mariners start doing well. And inevitably, every year they just tank. The Angels beat them last night.
Uh,
They had a
I'm
month of winning more games in a month. And my wife was like, this is so great. This is so great. And I grew up a White Sox fan. So I'm like, it's never going to last. I'm so pessimistic. Chicago Bears, White Sox. She grew up a Red Sox fan, but Red Sox have won a ton since then. But I'm just like the Nelly, like it's never going to happen. They're going to tank. It's going to be. She's like, you're so pessimistic. And now that they are tanking, she's like, oh.
Oh yeah.
So I think I've
Oh,
like
oh,
learned to protect myself and like have no expectations.
oh, that's what I do with my Flames. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we've won a Stanley Cup since the 80s and maybe Lanny McDonald at the time. Anyway, but
I don't think you've been
um
in the Stanley Cup for a long time, right?
they've
It's
barely made
more
the
paid than that.
playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and so like my expectations are really, really low. And so anytime they make any movement, I'm like, oh,
Ooh.
great. I mean, yeah. And my house is very divided. I mean, my husband's from Toronto, so he's a Leafs fan.
Ooh.
My Mia was born in LA. She was a Kings fan, not anymore. She's now a
Oh,
Leafs
okay.
fan for whatever reason. But I'm a Flames fan through and through, and you just got to just set your expectations low, people. Sorry.
The lesson of this podcast
life.
is have no expectations about anything. I was watching these two psychologists on a podcast the other day, and they were telling me that I have any hopes or dreams about anything. Do you think that's healthy? No, we're kidding. But yeah, how do you cope with that? Like, right?
Yeah.
Especially when things are out of your control, right?
But maybe
something like that.
Maybe that's the thing, though, Dana. It's like for the things that are out of your control.
Yeah.
Right. Which all you got to do is have a pet or a child to know that things are very
you can't control everything. No, yeah. No. And I think especially a child is the ultimate challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, you kind of see yourself as like more as an influencer, if you will, today, then, I'm here to control you or bulldoze you into a certain place or a certain way. But that idea of, setting your expectations around things that you can control. And even then, you can really bust over into perfectionism, which we've spoken about in a different episode. But, that idea of expectations, I also find for people that have very high expectations of themselves, they tend to have high expectations of others. And sometimes that can be a disappointment.
But it's so stressful too. Yes, absolutely. Like, why did you do that? Or how did you not do this other thing that you should have been able to do? And it really does create stress. What I tell my clients too is that I work a lot with neurodivergent clients, and perfectionism is a big thing. And the fear is if I don't have this expectation or this bar that I'm setting for myself, I'm somehow going to go too far the other way and not care about anything. And you can't have that sort of personality pervasively and ever not care about anything. So I have to really sort of soothe them and say, it's just not going to happen. You're never going to be the kind of person who lets everything roll off your back and you don't care about anything. We want to have you move over a little bit. But there does have to be kind of active steps made in your cognitive schemas around expectations to change them. Because like I'll say, I was disappointed. Well, what did you think it was going to be? And when I was younger, it wasn't even a particular thing. It was sort of like this global, I'm just going to have the best time ever. I'm going to have this feeling. And then if I didn't have that feeling, I felt disappointed. And it's sort of a setup, right? Because it was this ambiguous kind of not super defined sort of thing. And now it's like, we're going to go see the Mariners on their last day here. It's my wife's birthday and we're going to go. And my one expectation is I really like kettle corn. So my one expectation is I'm going to get that big honking bag of kettle corn. And I'm going to eat the whole damn thing. And everything else that happens, it's all gravy, right? So it sounds silly and use that as an example, but that's within my control is getting the kettle corn.
Yeah.
Right. And this is funny. We went to an NCAA game at a new stadium here in Seattle, and they didn't have the giant bags. They had these little bags. Disappointment. And they were like this made of this weird mylar material that when you opened it, it kind of split and it was going everywhere. And it really ruined my time. The popcorn wasn't what I thought it would be. Right? Because it just didn't. And I had to go through this thing. And I finally said to my wife, I'm really kind of, I don't know what my problem is. I'm freaking out about the popcorn thing. And she's like, well, I think it wasn't what you were expecting. And she says, I can go get you another one and we can open it more carefully this time if you want, which was so sweet. And I said, no, it's fine. I don't need another one. But just another person knowing that I was like struggling with something that was so seemingly mundane, but really had an impact on me. Yeah. So it can be something like that, or it can be a huge world event. Like I applied to med school and I didn't get in, something along those lines, and everything in between. What I have found is just having numerous possibilities, and then also telling myself, I'm just going to let the experience be what it's going to be, which is a version of no expectations, but a little different. I'm not going into it like pessimistically, like, I expect nothing, but more like I'm going to be open to what happens.
Yeah. And maybe, Dana, on the other side of that is a self-trust. Yeah. The idea of, you know what, no matter what happens, I trust that I'm going to be fine, right? I trust that I'll be able to manage it. I trust that I'll be able to get help if I need. I trust in myself. And I feel like that a lot of times is what can be missing, for some of my clients, right? It's like, do you trust yourself?
Yeah.
And inevitably the answer is a resounding no, right? Because for so much of their life, they've felt diminished, or that they don't know because of lots of different reasons, right? Lots of different information, actions, reactions that they're getting, from their environments. And so a lot of times when they're coming to me, and, I'm working with, later adolescents, young adults, and through adulthood. But, they're really coming, it's kind of this phase of like, I'm really coming into my adult life.
Right.
What does that mean? And now I really do need to look at who I am. And it's really the first time they're doing that.
Yeah.
And
they,
so I
they
get
have
it.
some degree of control, because everything prior to that is your kid. You're in that kind of prison of kiddom where you can't control a lot.
Yeah. And it feels like you can't, because how many times are they like, I really do feel this way. And then, and the information or the reaction is, well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got that a lot.
Right. Or that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So it's either pathologized or whatever that is. And so that idea of like, I'm going to be okay with some unknown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is hard. That is like,
as you're talking about that, I was thinking about predictability, and we have touched on that before. And maybe this is this idea of disappointment gets tweaked more with us because of what you're talking about. That disconnect between maybe if you've got a neurodivergent kid and a neurotypical parent or family or whatever, or world, right? Diminishing your experience of feeling like it wasn't what I thought it would be. And instead of being, oh, I'm so sorry, what can I do to help? Or how can I make it different? There is just that, suck it up, whatever, right? Because of that disconnect, because of that misunderstanding between those two worlds, I think we're sort of ripe for that. Fits in with that idea of how that super high percentage of folks that are neurodivergent growing up who also meet criteria for post-traumatic stress. Because of that misfit, we'll talk a little bit more about that in another podcast, but that misfit and not being understood, and by peers and family and the world and everything else, that sense of that not being seen for who you really are. So you can go too far the other way and just say, I'm just going to be, Eeyore and expect nothing to work out. And that's not fun either, because Eeyore was depressed and needed help, right? Yeah. Poor Eeyore.
Oh man. I mean, we could, maybe one of our episodes, we should just analyze each of the characters of Winnie the Pooh.
I always wanted to be Pooh Bear, but I really identified with Eeyore and Charlie Brown.
Yeah. Oh,
so can't anything work out, Yeah, exactly.
I mean, every time I watch Charlie Brown, my heart goes out to him. I literally, and it's so interesting. This is so tangential. I realized why there's some shows that I can't watch. I love science fiction shows, and my clients have totally gotten me into Stargate, and I love. My husband just said to me, "You're more of a science fiction fan than a fantasy fan," and I was like, "Abso-freaking-lutely!" I love my science. I like fantasy, but I really like science fiction.
Yeah.
And I just realized, even though there's a lot of things happening, in the show, there's relational things, there's painful things, there's diversity things. I mean, it's lovely. So I mean, when I watch a show that's like a drama or a reality or something, and there's things, it really hurts me. My daughter really encouraged me to watch Atypical, which I hadn't watched. And I will say I couldn't get past the second episode for lots of many reasons.
It's worth it to try. Yeah, worth it to try. But I had the same experience. All that kind of the pain part of
Pain.
it was
The
too
pain
much.
of it. The
Yeah.
pain of it, the pain, the way the mother deals with the pain, the way he
Mhm.
deals with pain, the way
Mhm. It does
like,
get
I'm like,
better, but yeah, it's hard to get
oh,
through
does
that.
it?
It's like my real life is hard enough. Like when that show The
Yes.
Office first was popular and everybody was so excited about it,
I never
I
watched
watched
it.
it and I'm like, this is like my life. Why? This isn't funny. This is like what I
Yeah.
live for every day at an office. And now I can watch it and think it was funny, but it's absolutely right. It's too
It's
mirroring
just
of real life.
it's too close. Like it hits too
Yeah,
close to home.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and I'm spending all day supporting people through these things. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I
Yeah,
can't. Like, give me my Stargate, which,
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever
And
it
not to
is. Like,
say
I
that
mean,
those things
Orville or
yeah.
whatever,
Well, we've talked about that too, like with the Mandalorian. I needed to know that Baby Yoda wasn't gonna die.
Yeah.
And once a
Or
client of mine
Grogu.
said he doesn't die, then I was able
Yeah.
to tolerate. But there's certain things that all of us are going to have a hard time
Yeah.
sort of dealing with that. Yeah, and because it's when you're. I thought about that when we were talking about predictability. I'm like, a lot of shows I watch, I don't know what's going to happen, but I still love them. But it's also like all the Marvel movies always have those endings that are inspiring. So I know I'm probably going to be safe with those. And all the Star Wars ones, that same thing. There may be a character dies that I'm crying about, but it's fiction, science fiction.
Yeah.
I'm not living in space, whereas atypical, that was more like, oh, I could live in that house and I could have a mother that was like that. Oh my God, it's a little too much, right? It's
Yeah.
not predictable enough. It makes me think about routine and things like a lot of neurodivergent folks really like to eat processed food because it's always the same every time. If you make a cake at home, it might turn out a little bit different each time, depending on the ice it or whatever, but a Twinkie is going to
Good
be the
point,
same
Dana.
every time, right? And I was like, oh, I had a big aha
Good
moment
point.
because I don't eat a lot of processed food, but I was like, oh, that's like fast food and that kind of stuff. When you get a thing of French fries at McDonald's, assuming they're not cold, they're always going to taste exactly the same. It's predictable.
Yeah, good point.
You can control it. That totally makes sense to me now. And that was,
That makes sense to
yeah,
me. That's clarifying for me even.
yeah, it really helped clarify for me
That
too.
that doesn't clarify why I enjoy processed food, however. That might just be hyperpalatability and
Yeah.
a surge of the dopamine centers. But I mean,
I think
it
you're
could
a little
be
more
that.
neurodivergent than you think.
No, a client diagnosed me the other day. I was talking about something and he's like, and ADHD. And I didn't know what he was talking about. And it was just like going on. He's like,
Oh,
Gwen and ADHD. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like,
yeah,
if you're going to be talking about your struggle with writing, you might as well throw ADHD in there. I'm like,
yeah. I
got
know.
it. Message received.
I don't meet full criteria for ADHD. I tried meds a while ago, didn't. So I know
I
I'm
don't.
not
Yeah.
diagnostically ADHD, but boy, I have traits, which makes me neurodiverse in that way too.
I've,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny as I do this more and more. I notice
You
some of my own traits.
with the Borg, we're going to assimilate you. They're
Yeah.
coming for you to use some.
It's like I'm moving along the continuum line. Like it's like I'm like tiptoeing, I think what's been so great though is just like embracing parts of this because, I've been asked like, why does this resonate with you
Yeah.
so deeply, or why? And I will say, like, I really feel like, I mean, I have complex trauma in my life and where I've come from, and that's really helped me with a lot of clients. And we can
Training.
talk about complex trauma,
Yeah.
in a different episode. But yeah, I mean, dealing with unpredictability when things don't go the way you imagined. This is hard stuff, and I will say it's really probably this area is a recurring
Yeah.
point of tension for my
Oh yeah.
clients.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
very difficult, and
Yeah.
we understand why. Why does it make sense, right?
Yeah.
Ask that clarifying question. And I think the idea here too is before you want to move to fix someone, you might want to seek to understand
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. I'm thinking about people that enjoy traveling and they're like, oh, I love it. I never know where I'm going to be from day to day or what I'm going to eat. And I'm just like, oh my God. But that's the ideal, right? But it isn't,
Yeah.
me.
It's
And
not.
so, yeah.
It's
So,
not
yeah,
her.
sit in their shoes for a little bit and realize kind of that temperamentally, this is who they are. Temperamentally, this is who this person who loves traveling is going to be. Great. But these are not compatible
Yeah.
ways of being. And not to judge one as pathological or not. They're just different.
They're just different. And that's the whole idea of neurodiversity, right? That that we understand that neurological variability is normal.
Exists. Yeah, that's right.
That is the norm.
Yep.
And so when we can wrap our heads around that, it's interesting to me because, our last episode was on pets, right? We were talking about our love of pets and the massive amount of good that they do, I think, in our lives. And you just said this, Dana, like know what your temperament is and know, or your aptitudes, right? And know where things are going to be comfortable for you or what's compatible for you. We get that with dogs. Well, we should I think it's easier for us to think about that with dogs because I think most dog owners don't think about the breed of the animal in regards to like their living situation, right? It always makes me laugh. I'm like, you have a Bernese mountain dog and you live in a 1-bedroom apartment. Like
but he was so cute
Arizona.
when he was a puppy. Yeah.
Right. In Arizona. Like it's like awful for this dog, right? Whatever. And for if you do own a Bernese mountain dog in Arizona in a single bedroom, this is no shade to you. I'm just saying you probably do what you need to do for this dog. But the other thing too is just like habitats. Like I talk about habitats a lot with my clients, which is like, what is your ideal habitat? And we seem to very instinctually get this with plants. Like we
fish,
know,
right?
Right. If we take you out of your habitat into something, you die. Yeah. Like you don't thrive.
Or, and like a small guppy will do great in a 10-gallon tank. In fact, that's spacious for a guppy, right?
Yeah.
If you put a octopus in a 10-gallon tank, it will lose its mind. And first of all, it'll find a way to get out because they're really smart and they can fit through small cracks. But that's a good example. I mean, two fish, very different ways of being, and it's that same sort of thing. And that is like the different breeds of dogs. We are like that too. And it's interesting that we don't afford that grace to ourselves or to our fellow human beings. We expect us all to fit into this one little, row up the middle and not the edges. And it's,
Yeah. I mean, this is why compliance-based training of any kind is a problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And we can talk about table that for another time. Yeah. But yes, but for those of you, and we know, like we've got some really consistent Marvels in our community, and we just want to thank you for sharing your thoughts and your stories. Your stories are amazing and heartfelt. And so we want to thank you there. And we want to encourage the community to keep sharing their stories. If there's something, if you struggle with difference or change or unexpected things, how do you cope with it? Like, what do you do? And there's no thing too small to have a difficult time with, because we're all,
and let it be known to the people in your life. Because my wife knew with the popcorn thing, it was really important to me. I'd talked about it for a month before we went, and she could just see it on my face. And it's just popcorn. But it was so sweet when she said, I'll go get you another bag. And I was like, that's really all I needed. Sweet. I'm okay now. So learn about and tell people what your needs are. And then hopefully they'll respond in a way that isn't what's wrong with you, but, let me help you.
Yeah. I mean, Dana, right away, we need to just put a gallon-sized Ziploc bag in your purse or in your bag.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great, see, that would have helped.
Just bring it. Day. Bring it with you just in case.
That's right.
The bag is not, and that's annoying. By the way, a Mylar bag on that, those things rip like
climate
crazy.
Pledge arena, and so the stuff that the popcorn was in was biodegradable. So I get it, but it tore too easily. Yeah.
It's like the paper straws.
Oh, I have a metal straw in my backpack at all time now.
Just I know. We do. Yeah, we roll with one too. Yeah, okay. On that note. Be good to you, Marvels. Be good to you. Be good to you. See you in the next episode, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.